Hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my overview of Cyberknight's Flashpoint. Now, if you're not across it, I do overviews on this channel to where I have a look at the first 2 hours of a game because it's a Steam refund window. I have a whole spiel around it, but generally speaking, these are short punchy videos, around 10 minutes, to give you a broad bit of info and see if it's worth your time and worth your money. A little bit of an exception in this case, this game has gone through early access, so this is the 1.0 release. I have just put a 2-hour session into it now. However, I'd previously played an earlier build, the early access build for an hour, and if I recall correctly, I kind of bounced off it a little bit. It's pretty rough, pretty dry, pretty deep. Some of that stuff's still here, but that's not to say that it's a bad game. It's just you got to block out some time and turn off all your distractions. This same game actually demands quite a bit of focus, which, you know, be informed going in. If you're looking for a lighter Candy Crush Connect 3 or something like that, this is not for you. But if you're looking for something very, very meaty to get really into the systems, then yeah, this might actually pique your interest. It's worth pointing out it's developed and published by the Treese brothers. I've looked at their previous release, Star Traders Frontiers. I actually had a lot of fun with that in the early days of my channel. I have some fond memories, and that's kind of an open world, open universe. You run a spaceship, almost like a Star Trek simulator. You know, you fill it up with crew members. You can go around and carve your own legacy through the galaxy, whether that's war fighting or trading or exploring planets and doing away teams, and like similar in that these boys seem to really enjoy taking a huge bite of the pie, which I generally think is inadvisable for most indie devs. Too many systems, too much overreach, it can kind of dilute your product in the end. But look, they kind of stick the landing, at least in Star Traders, and from what I've covered here, again, very meaty, very dry, a lot of walls of text, a lot of heavy tutorialization that could probably be a bit tighter and cleaner, but there's still something pretty cool going on here, pretty magic. Anyway, look, there's the setup. I like it, I do. The hours ran away from me, I lost track of time. This is always a good sign. What is Cyberknights? Well, you could call it an XCOM-like. It's got some things in common, picking an away team, doing missions, and then doing an ant farm base management style thing in between. So it's got that in common. However, it's very stealth heavy. I mean, you could argue there were aspects of XCOM 2 which were stealth heavy in that, you know, it's more of an asymmetric guerrilla warfare fighting. You have stealth openings. This game is really big on stealth from top to bottom. And I like it, right? I actually enjoy turn-based stealth games quite a bit. I feel that they work better than most stealth games. What it really reminds me of, and we haven't looked at this on the channel, I haven't looked at it in bloody 10 years, is Invisible Ink, a Clay release game you may want to look up or you may even remember. But same idea, running a spy agency, turn-based, stealth-heavy. It's not like XCOM in the sense that you can't just go loud and solve all your problems with gunplay, or rather you can and you might have to escalate, but it's more like get to the extraction, get out, a fighting retreat sort of setup. And all of this is covered in a cyberpunk, super dripping finish. I really like the theme that's going on here. It's very edgy. You could probably write a paper on the difference between, I don't know, overt edginess that leans right into it up to the line of camp but doesn't flinch from the theme. You know, they're dropping all these, we gotta get in there and slice the ice, but I've only got 20 qubits of memory before the slammers come down and rip that Cyberknight spine straight out of your zombified back. You know, like it's so edgy and unflinching that I kind of love that stuff, as opposed to, I don't know, cringe, which is where it does take itself too self-seriously or even self-aware. And it kind of reminds me more of the spirit of Cyberpunk when it was like 90s tabletop D&D style stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with modern, you know, Cyberpunk 2077. In fact, I would argue, much to what I was just describing, that's part of why that game works as well. It's unflinching in its cyber wordplay and, you know, just this is the world and we're in it, and if you can't keep up, bad luck. I kind of like all of that, just leaning hard and chewing on the theme, chewing up the scenery, as it were. In fact, it's probably even worth mentioning the writing. Another real sticky point with a lot of these games for me is very much impetus driven, objective driven, right? We have this setup, it's interesting and it's intrigue, and it's because it puts the characters and their bloody feelings and their mental conditions and all that crap totally secondary or tertiary, as opposed to a lot of modern writing that leads with that crap. And I don't care about your personal problems. This is escapism. I like intrigue. And so this setup is that you've scooped together this little ragtag group of guys. You put all your money together and you've taken a gamble with like a syndicate leader chick who's sponsored you, which is to say put you in deep debt, to get this cyber knight spine implanted in your main character. And so the opening tutorial, again, it kind of drags, it's kind of dry, but you know, that's how they've chosen to go about teaching you the game, is getting into this secret facility, doing this Cyberknight surgery on your dude's spine. You're essentially putting a Sandevistan thing into your guy, and the hope is that you'll be able to pay everything off with this big, dangerous, expensive risk. And then, you know, without getting into too much spoilers, on the back foot of that, you now have, you know, a syndicate better that you have to report to, and you have to cut a deal. Like, do I have to pay this thing off with multiple jobs, or maybe she's got a bit more of a third-party offer. There was a snitch that blew security on your run in that first heist, and you can do this legwork stuff, send guys off to investigate and try and figure out what's going on there and lean on it. And then you've got other heists you've got to make bank back because now you're in the hole. And my point is that you have some plates spinning, you have impetus behind your narrative component, and to me that's the strength. That's what strong writing is. It's impetus before character. But yeah, so you take your dudes on these heists, they have combat, they have a million different skills and abilities, and it's all very overwhelming. But a big part of it, like I said with Invisible Ink, is trying to, like, I'm kind of on my first proper heist off the leash out of the tutorial, and you're just trying to break in, you're trying to steal as much crap that you can that's not nailed down. There's dudes doing patrols, different guys have different skills, and you can sort of predict where their movement pattern is. You've seen this sort of thing before. There'll be like security cameras and laser grids and motion detectors and mines, and like there's a real lot of security stuff that you have to grapple with. And generally speaking, you can just turn these things off temporarily, or you guys will have like a silenced pistol secondary, and there is a window if you get spotted to shoot bad guys to sort of shut it down. You can sprint, you can sneak, you know, there are these motion detector things you have to sneak through, so you're sort of stuck out in the open holding your dick a little bit, you know, hoping a patrol doesn't turn around and look at you while you're sneaking through this open area. And it's good, it's tense. There is a hacking, I don't even want to say mini game, it's clearly a pretty big deal in this, and it's using all those terms, you know, like slicing and ice and loaded memory and blah 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 blah, matrix move points, whatever. It seems actually quite deep and involved and interesting. I wonder how it will go in the long term, and if it will take away from the core loop. Again, like I said, these blokes, they like to have lots and lots of different systems and that going on in their games, but I feel like sometimes having two really large systems battling it out for your timeshare, your brain is going to triage it and go, well, this is good and the other one's not as good. And I don't know, that framing's not really great. And then I start to think of, you know, the hacking is okay, but I then think about things like Hacknet, one of the greatest hacking games of all time, arguably lighter and more narrative. There's another game called Drop, which I love. That's probably my favorite hacking game ever that no one's ever heard of or seen. You should look it up. Or rather, I just looked it up. It's called Drop System Breach. It's buried down in the search. You have to really look for it. But I feel like a lot of the hacking that's in this is in that game, and that's faster, cleaner, and it didn't take half an hour to tutorialize it. So I understand explaining to the lowest common denominator, but I feel like maybe they should probably tighten up their tutorials a little bit. They're over-explaining stuff to the point of boredom. But yeah, look, I really like it. It's a cool departure from that turn-based space. Stealth heavy is fine, but it's not really explored that often. So if you're looking for like a Baldur's Gate 3 or even an XCOM or whatever, that's not really what's here. It's doing its own thing in the stealth hacking, looting, heist, get in, get out space, but I like it. I do like it. And without going too circular, yeah, it's a little bit of a slog, at least in the beginning, in that impression window. This is my impression from my time with it. I feel like maybe it'll probably take off a bit further down the track, and that serves as a little bit of a cautionary warning to developers in general. You only have so much time to grab the player's attention, and you shouldn't fuck around with walls of text explaining. If your system requires walls and walls of text to explain, there's probably something going wrong there. Not that the system's wrong, but your ability to convey the information with said walls of text, that needs assessment. We live in an age where all it takes is one wall of text too much for the person to hit escape, desktop, refund, and they go across the street and buy the opposition. So yeah, I think there's a good game here, but it probably demands a little bit more tolerance on entry level to really get into the meat of the game. Anyway team, might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.